Hello again. In the last section of this presentation, we tried to define and give some general perspectives on socialization. And what I want to concentrate on in this segment is how socialization happens. What are some of the main processes, and what are some of the main agents through which socialization takes place? Probably one of the most important insights that we can offer about socialization is that what socialization involves, people talk about a kind of imitation, or they talk about socialization as embodying a sort of relationship to the social environment. It has to do with relations between the self and others, and with the ability of oneself, taking on the role of others. And one way in which we can see this developing is through things like children's play. The reason that children play, or the reason that children's play is important, is that it leads to an understanding of how people interact with one another in the environment where they live. And you have probably noticed that a lot of children's play involves pretending to be other people, pretending to be somebody in a particular job, or pretending to be somebody in a particular social role, or pretending to be a character out of something that children have learned in history. And by pretending to be these other people, they learn what these people expect of other people. That is, that this role-playing has a tremendous psychological importance, and it has not only a major psychological importance, but also a major role in the formation of identity, because by taking on these roles, what children learn to do is to internalize the expectations that people have of them. And in this regard, this children's play, this activity of role-playing, is actually not so different from what people continue to do when they are no longer children. As this process of social learning, of socialization, is ongoing. George Herbert Mead, whose photo you saw in the previous slide, talks about socialization then as occurring through stages. The first stage is imitation. You learn to do what other people are doing without necessarily having an understanding of its purpose, and very often succeeding in doing what other people are doing brings with it a reward, praise, affection, something like this. From the stage of imitation, children then move on to the stage of play, that in a group with one or two other children will begin taking on the role of the other person, developing an understanding for one another, developing an understanding for responses, and for what sorts of responses are expected, what sorts of responses are forbidden. And this becomes more complex as people continue to develop. It becomes more complex when it moves into the game stage. Think of games like board games, like sporting matches played in teams and so on, in which you find many people performing different functions, contributing to the whole, in which the principal task in this complex activity is to anticipate what other people will do. So a game is about learning social roles. So that the game, and taking and understanding and anticipating roles in a game, operates as a kind of microcosm of what people do in social life. You learn what your role is, you learn what other people's roles are, and you learn an orientation to the generalized other, how you as a self relate to the generalized other in society. How does this happen aside from games? Well, there we can begin to talk about agents of socialization. What are the institutions and who are the actors that make socialization possible? Probably one of the first and most important agents of socialization is the family. That is, you develop a relation to the society in the first instance as a child by developing a relation to parents or other caregivers, if the caregivers are someone other than parents. And one of the things that we find is that in different social groups, children tend to be socialized differently. They become socialized in ways that correspond to the roles that will be expected of them in what is anticipated to be their future life, so that middle-class children are socialized in a way that emphasizes autonomy and independence, or difference from others. Working-class children are socialized in a way that emphasizes obedience and compliance with authority. This works in terms of class. It also works in terms of gender. A lot of what happens in the family with children of different genders is activity organized around socializing them into taking generally accepted gender roles. And this is true in terms of the kind of clothing that people are given to wear, consistent with different gender identities. It's true in terms of the kinds of toys that they're given to play with, the kinds of games that they're given to play, the books and films and other things that are provided with them. So think of life with the family and interaction with the members of the family as a first instance of socialization, and we move into a further instance of socialization. Most of you will already have guessed that the other primary agent of socialization is education. Now, if we think of schools, every school has a formal curriculum, right? You study different things. You study history, chemistry, mathematics, whatever it is that you're studying. It is a set of skills and a body of knowledge that everybody is supposed to have. And there is what's been referred to as the hidden curriculum, the transmission of cultural values. And what are some of these values that are transmitted? One is obedience to authority, obedience to teachers, to other officers of the school. Another is about shared symbols and shared meanings, so that people will learn history, but will learn history in a way that is designed to encourage a particular orientation to the state, to the dominant ethnic and national identities in the state. And this is often celebrated in symbolic ways. When I was a child in school, we were supposed to begin every morning by saluting the flag, and we would sing patriotic songs. The national anthem, different songs about different periods in history. So the result is that people are socialized to identify with the dominant elements of their social environment and to adopt a role of submission to authority. And there are other parts of the hidden curriculum by taking tests in which some people get a higher mark than other people. Schools train people to be competitive and to have an adversary relation with other people in the social environment through different kinds of gender socialization. The fact that boys and girls are encouraged to study different subjects. If they go into sporting activity, they're encouraged to play different sports. People are socialized into internalizing the dominant versions of particular gender roles, and school becomes a forum for peer pressure. The fact that some people are more socially successful and more popular than others in schools is a form of education into hierarchy. Now, this table, you will find the table in the reading. I'm not going to go into it in great detail now. There's really just one point that I want to make out of by reference to this table, and that is that the process of socialization is not a process that is confined, as you might be led to assume by looking at institutions like the family or institutions like education. It is not confined to childhood. The process of socialization is ongoing, and it especially becomes prominent in adult life when technologies and practices change. Most of us can probably find ways in which during our lifetimes different attitudes, especially about questions like gender and questions like sexuality, have changed within our memory, and behaviors and types of language that might have been considered acceptable when we were children are definitely no longer considered acceptable. So think of all of this emphasis on childhood and play and interaction as a simplified way of understanding a process that is ongoing throughout the entire lives of people in every social environment.